What was your immediate response when you saw the Mail on Sunday article?
Well, I say it's a great sadness.
And obviously, you can't distract politicians or indeed journalists by doing it. It's farcical, isn't it?
Yeah, and I say it's a great sadness that I'm just not surprised, because this sort of sexism and misogyny, it is frankly the sort of rubbish that female MPs, but also female staffers in the House of Commons, have to put up with every single day. And, when I hear a minister just now say, oh, I haven't heard this sort of thing before, talk to your female colleagues. Talk to the women who work in your office, because a lot of them would have experienced this sort of thing.
What then needs to happen next? I asked the Minister this morning, and frankly, he's perhaps not senior enough to perhaps be privy to these discussions, but I did ask the Minister whether or not, given the tone of the article, given the tone of the comments that we must presume have been made by several Conservatives, that there shouldn't be some form of internal investigation.
Yeah, I think that too many people think that this sort of thing is just acceptable. So it's got to be called out, and right from the top. And it's got to be seen as totally socially unacceptable to be saying this sort of stuff. But there are just too many stories, not just of sexism, but also things like we've got a Conservative MP in Wakefield who's been convicted of sexual offences against a child. He's still a Member of Parliament. He hasn't handed in his resignation yet. We've got to sort out Parliament so that the vetting system of who can be an MP is improved, the processes within parties improve, but also to make Parliament more welcoming for people, including women. And women have been in Parliament now for over 100 years, but still only a third of MPs are women. And this sort of rubbish that Angela has been subjected to, but many others as well, frankly puts off good people from putting themselves forward to Parliament. And we don't want that.
I certainly don't want this to be the totality of what we discussed this morning, but one of the curiosities I just want to show you on the screen of the way in which the government has responded to all of this are a couple of tweets, and we put this to Chris Philp a little bit earlier. Here is what the Prime Minister originally tweeted. If you can pop it in the screen for us. There we go. Disagree with Angela Rayner on almost every political issue, respect her as a parliamentarian, and deplore the misogyny directed at her anonymously today. And then we heard this from the Culture Secretary, which, if you squint, is pretty much exactly the same. Now, we understand that Boris Johnson has reached out privately to Angela Rayner, but I wonder what you think this says about their commitment to sorting this issue out.
Well, this shouldn't just be a line to take. This should be actually what you feel and what you believe. And also, we need some action, not just warm words. So the Conservative MPs who have been briefing journalists this story need to be made clear to them that this is totally unacceptable. And, the Conservative MP Caroline Nokes, who I've got huge respect for, is calling this out, but is also talking about the culture that she experiences in Parliament. And I think that working together across the political spectrum, we need to do much more to root out this sort of behaviour.
As I say, I don't want to stay on this, but just to be absolutely clear, do you think there is a place for some form of disciplinary action for those who are responsible for the briefing?
Well, the problem is we don't know the names because they don't have the guts to say this in public. They anonymously brief their friends in the press, but they shouldn't hide behind that anonymity. If that's what they think, have the guts to say it.
Just a word from you then on what we've seen across the Channel in the past 24 hours. Emmanuel Macron has defeated, and by a margin, Marine Le Pen, who has acted to soften some of the more liberal policies that her party puts forward, but is still broadly seen as from the far right. How concerned are you that 2 in 5 French people who went to the polls supported her?
Well, look, it is nice to have some good news in global politics, that the far right in France have been defeated, but no one should be relaxed or sanguine about the results. As you say, 42% of people voted for a candidate of the far right, and more is needed, not just in France, but around the world to tackle some of this extremism that we see in politics today, from the US to France to, sadly, Britain and beyond.
There are any number, of course, of places in Europe which are also similarly seeing a rise in far-right politics. Is this what the next part of the 21st century is going to be like? A battle against some fairly illiberal extremist policies?
I think we need to take on the far right, and Marine Le Pen can change her party's name and try and put a smile on the far right policies that she espouses. But it is still far right, and we need to call them out for what those policies are.
Let's talk about on your brief. Non-dom status. The Labour Party has settled on a position. Let's just hear what exactly it is.
If you make Britain your home, you should pay your taxes here. That is more important than ever, because at the moment we are in a cost of living crisis. Everybody is noticing those rising prices. And yet at the same time, the Conservative Party is increasing taxes on working people and on the businesses that employ them. And so it is absolutely right that loopholes are closed down that mean that there are a privileged few who are getting out of paying their fair share of taxes. These rules on non-doms are from 200 years ago. They are outdated, they are unjustifiable and unfair, and with Labour, they would go.
When you say they would go, you do concede, I think, in the press release that I read, that there are a small number of cases in which non-dom status is pertinent, is appropriate. So how do you limit it? I mean, there appear to be talk of some kind of time limitation on it.
So we would abolish non-dom status, but like in other modern economies, we would have rules for people who are temporarily in the UK for a short period of time. In Germany and in Canada, that is 6 months. In Japan, it is 5 years. We would work with business for getting the appropriate period of time. But in the UK, you can be here for year after year after year and get out of...
It's time limited to 15, isn't it?
15. If you live in the UK for 15 years, you should be paying your taxes here. 75,000 people in the UK are registered for non-dom status. 2,000 of them have been in the UK for more than 7 years. It isn't right that those people can pay a one-off fee and get out of paying their fair share of taxes. And so, of course, we need to have rules for people who come here to work on a secondment, etc., for a short period of time. But if you make Britain your home, you should pay your taxes here like everybody else.
So just in terms, though, of the time limitation on this status, obviously, as you say, you're going to take soundings from business, but it's going to be somewhere between 6 months and 5 years, I would suspect. I mean, personally, where do you feel is an appropriate place to put it?
Well, I want to consult to get that right, but I've looked at what other countries do. In the US, you pay full taxes from day one, and no one would suggest that the US is not welcoming of investment and entrepreneurs, etc. So we've got these different schemes in different countries. We'll consult to get that right, but I'm very clear that the non-dom status that exists today will not exist with a Labour government. We want to ensure that people feel welcome to come here to do a job and to contribute to the British economy, but that non-dom status where people who make their home here aren't paying their taxes, that is an outdated concept from 200 years ago, and it shouldn't stand today, especially when working people are seeing their taxes go up and up and up.
Rachel Reeves, lovely to see you this morning. Thanks for joining us.